everything because it comes from God, the Creator. What you may not realize is that the Bible describes a similar place, this super reality. But not many people have really read it or studied it enough or imagined it enough to see. Like, listen to what John describes scenery-wise in the book of Revelation as he has this vision of heaven. After this I looked, and people from every nation, tribe, people, and language were there wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. And he will lead them to springs of life-giving water. And he took me in the Spirit to a great high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, New Jerusalem. And it shone with the glory of God. And then an angel showed me the river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It flowed down the center of a main street. And on each side of the street, of this river, grew a tree of life bearing 12 crops of fruit. It's amazing. Brad, this blind guy, and this doctor, spine surgeon from Wyoming, and this airline pilot you're going to hear from today, and this pastor, and many other Christians say they saw in this near-death experience this amazing city and beauty and light like is hard to describe. And Brad approaches the city, and kind of like you heard Don talk about last week, he becomes aware of 1,000 voices singing. He said, I remember thinking that the voices seemed to be singing in a language I had never understood, or maybe many, many languages. The music I heard was nothing like anything I've ever experienced on earth, nor have I ever experienced. By this time, I was getting closer to the music and being absolutely fascinated by it. I wanted to join with the music. It was absolutely precious. Within a very short amount of time, and I had no idea how much time had actually elapsed, as we've been realizing. Time is of a different dimension too. But I was going up the hill, and I came to a large stone structure. I could tell that it was stone without even touching it. He doesn't say it, but he's talking about this wall around the city. They were almost like gemstones. They seemed to literally shine with their own particular light, yet the light itself was actually penetrating right through the stones. Dr. Neal described a very similar thing in the interview I did with her. And here's this blind guy describing light coming out of the wall and all this beauty. But it's what John wrote about the city in Revelation. An angel carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem. It shone with the glory of God. And its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like jasper, clear as crystal. That's an oxymoron. Jasper's a color, clear as crystal. And you start to see, they're trying to describe something that in our flat 2 dimensions, a 3-dimensional description doesn't make sense, does it? But that's what they're describing. And a great and high wall with 12 gates. And the foundation of the city walls was decorated with every kind of precious stone. The city does not need the sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light. And the Lamb, Jesus, is its lamp. You know, when I was writing the chapter on heaven's beauty, I was actually up in the Sierras at this conference called Terra Nova, New Earth, kind of appropriate. And I was sitting in this lush valley with, you know, it's just beautiful, and these high mountain peaks on either side, and it was perfect temperature and just beautiful air. And I thought to myself, I wish my son were here. I wish Justin were here, because we would go explore every mountaintop. And then I had this thought, wow, what if that's what heaven's going to be like? Like my whole family there, and all the time in the world to explore all of God's creation, because everything we see will glorify Him. It'll show us more and more, pointing back to the beauty of the Creator. And I thought about my father-in-law. He passed away in May. Such a dear follower of Jesus. He loved space. In fact, he was the head of the space station project for NASA. And I think about, what if the reason the universe is so vast is that we get to explore it for all eternity? It sounds crazy, but I wonder if that's what he's doing, because what would it be like when travel is completely different? Listen to how Dr. Neal and Don Piper describe travel in heaven. Watch this.
What's travel like in heaven?
You know,
What did you experience?
I probably walked, but I feel like I moved in some cases without walking. I don't even feel like you have to. I think if you want to be over there, you can be over there. I think it's
Just
that
with
way.
thought?
Yeah, just because that's where you want to be. So I don't know that movement there is necessarily like it is here. I think we still have our arms and legs, and I think we're the way that God made us. But I don't know that travel or movement or anything is necessarily like this. I did sense that when the crowd parted and I'm going through the gates, that I was moving. I don't really specifically remember walking. I may have, but I wasn't paying attention to that. I was paying attention to my goal, which was high and lifted up. I wanted to go up there and fall at his feet and tell him thank you for letting me come. So I did move. I would say movement in heaven is not like it is here.
We weren't physically walking, but I would agree that there are different types of travel, because we were moving down this pathway, not locomoting, but gliding, I suppose. But as we were going down the pathway, I was still able to hear the guys on the riverbank and see them. And one of the guys, who at the time was only 18, he's a very young man, a very dear friend of ours, he kept calling to me to come back and take a breath. And I would look back, and he looked so vulnerable and so devastated that I would say, oh, just a minute, I'll be right back. And the people who were taking me were very patient and understanding, and I would almost immediately be back in my body, and I would take a breath.
Like by thought, you were just there?
Right. And then I would rejoin them.
It's like, it seems so sci-fi. But yet that is what God has been revealing. You know, the followers of Jesus, when he was crucified, he appeared to them risen. And when he did, you know, he could suddenly just appear, and yet he could be touched, like we talked about last week, and he could eat fish with them. But then it also says at one point in Acts 1:9, it says, after Jesus said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid them from their sight. He just rose up. And they were looking intently into the sky as he was going, when suddenly two men dressed in white stood beside him. Them, men of Galilee, they said, why do you stand looking into the sky? The same Jesus who has been taken from you into heaven will come back in the same way you've seen him go into heaven. Imagine heaven. When we are together with those we love in the most beautiful place, and travel can happen by thought, anywhere in God's great creation. Exploration, or we can walk together and talk together, or communication happens purely heart to heart, or we can glide along. Or you ever had a dream of flying? You know those dreams that are like, I want to do that again. You ever been jealous of the birds? What if? I know it seems crazy, but I want you to hear from a man who has flown all across the globe. Our guest today is a TWA pilot who's flown 17,000 hours and landed in about every major city on this planet. But I want you to hear what happened when his plane flew 135 miles an hour into a 70-foot monument. No one survived except him. And I want you to hear him describe flying into the holy city of God. Watch this first. You know, Dale, it's been so fun. We've hung out the last day or so, and just, you know, I mean, you are a captain. You're an engineer mind, and have run multi-million-dollar businesses in the airline industry, and yet this experience has defined your life, hasn't it?
That's an understatement, but yes, it is true.
So take us back to that day. That was the very plane that took the lives of the other two pilots with you.
Yeah.
What What happened? What do you remember after that crash?
I hovered above the crash site, watching, learning, asking questions, followed the ambulance. My body was put in the ambulance, raced to the hospital, even though they thought I was dead to begin with. Their life came back in me. I went into the hospital, but not in my body, but above it. In the emergency room, they were working on me, doctors and nurses, cutting my gray slacks and shirt off. I was all bloodied, and I was pretty much of a mess. But I watched this from what looked like a bird's eye view, and I saw all the commotion going on. I'm asking questions. I had this life review of one moment in my life, not all my life, just one moment of my life, and it was when I was in the 5th grade, where I had prayed to receive Jesus into my heart as a young 11 and 12-year-old kid. And I was full of zeal for God at that time, wanted to live for Him with my life, and I was genuine and sincere. But when this flashback took place in the emergency room, when I was in this accident, I realized that I was no longer that young kid who loved God. I was a kid who had kind of lost my way and loved my life and loved my goals and my dreams, because it was all about me. It was all about what I wanted, not what God wanted. And I was sad about what had become of me. I mean, I still knew God. I still knew there was a God, and I did know that Jesus was His Savior, but I had lost my way along the path of living for myself. And but the grief and all suddenly departed, and I moved out of the hospital into a deep outer space. Long story there, it's in the book, of course, but I saw this city of gold this golden, brilliant, it was white light in the center, but it moved out, and it was a ball of heavy, thick gold light. And all the colors in the rainbow were in the white, but what I saw was the white and the gold. And as I got closer and closer, Pastor John, I knew that this was the city, a holy city. I knew I was in heaven.
You're coming, like flying into a city.
Yeah, flying into a city, approaching and decelerating and descending. Why God would do that?
Only God would do that for a pilot, right? Does that mean I'm going to be kicking a soccer ball through the gate?
It means that we're going to have to go through flying lessons here pretty soon. Yeah, I'll help.
No, but that's just so fascinating. Did it feel like flying? I mean,
no, there was no sensations of G-forces or physical distortion of the eyes squinting, none of that. There was no discomfort in any way, but travel was extremely fast, and then it began to slow down as I got near what I called the city of God. I knew it was the city of God, and I knew God reigned here, but He was in the light. And it was on the other side, there was a wall around the city.
How big was the city?
The city was huge, way larger than anything like Paris or London or Beijing or anything, Mexico City, way bigger than that. And what I saw, and I'm able to kind of quickly judge distances, because you're trained to do that, but about 40 miles into this city, way back beyond the wall, there was an event going on that is, it's easy to describe when I write it, because I can write better than I can speak. Sorry about that. But there was, of course, the mountains and the flowers and the air, all the things that you've mentioned before. But there was this humongous crowd of people and angels that I was able to see from a long way away. I was looking over the wall, but still on the outside of the city. And this group of people and angels were moving with the music, and they were moving in praise and swaying with the music, and talk about oneness and unity and love. there's life in music. The light is full of life and love, and it's light that's palpable. It's thick. It has substance and weight to it, and all the colors in the rainbow are in it. But that light, and I knew is coming from God. I knew it. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew this was God. I mean, it's like you would say here on the earth, well, duh, you know. It's God. The light comes from God, but in that light is the love of God. How do you describe the love of God? Well, you spent a lifetime trying to do that. It's unconditional love. It's not based on who you are, what skills or talents you have, how much money or success you have. It's based on just the fact that you and I are the creation of God, and He loves us. He loved me, and I could hardly... I told myself I wouldn't cry this time.
You know what? You know what's so awesome? You're gonna make me cry.
I cried.
Stop it. Well,
Couple of engineers. Couple of engineers crying.
Every time
Oh
you
my
talk
gosh.
about this, it comes from so deep within you, doesn't it?
It does, because it's the Spirit of God inside the spirit of His children, and I'm just one, but it's God who's alive, who has created us in His image, and when we get out of the way and we let the Spirit of God in us, then we can reflect His light and His love and His life in this world, and that's how we can conquer disease, and that's how we can conquer darkness in this world, because it's the light of God in us. It's the love of God in us. And it's that life of God, and it all comes from Him, like you were preaching so well earlier.
All right, let's mop up. We really are engineers.
Yeah, as funny as that
Okay,
is.
so I want you to describe, since we're talking about the beauty of the surrounding landscape around this city and in the city. And
the funniest thing is you're asking me, who, you know, I grew up with machines, and I enjoy machinery, and then there's nothing like that in heaven, of course. There's nothing mechanical there that I was aware of or never saw. But it's all made by God, and it's all made into perfection. How do you describe it? Everything's perfect. I remember the first thing I noticed coming into the city was, if I may, just the grass. The grass was so incredible. I mean, it was an aha moment, we would say. I just took my breath away, because I never seen grass that was wild and perfectly manicured, yet mankind, no human being, no angel had to touch it. Light came through the grass from the source of the light, which is God Himself. It pulsated in the grass itself. Every blade was not bent or twisted. It was perfection. It looked more like velvet, and that's just the grass.
But you know what's so... You got to read Imagine Heaven, because so many people talk about the grass, and they can't stop describing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. I mean, it's crazy.
I was seared by this experience a few years after the crash. I had to find some kind of job to pay for my flight training lessons, and it just so happened God had me become a golf course greens consultant. So for a year and a half,
Just to rub it in, like, this is not even close.
I would just rub that grass all day. Yeah, it was weird, but true story. A year and a half of my life was spent with grass on golf courses. That's just one story.
So you told me as you were flying in, back behind the city was a mountain range.
Yeah, beautiful mountains, very much like these that you just showed, but not mountains you would want to conquer in any way, but mountains you would just revere.
What do you mean?
Because of the majesticness that God created. You just look at the mountains and just go, wow, oh my gosh. But maybe unlike you, because you might be there when you're there, you might look at the mountains and take more time to do so. But I was more interested in what was happening with the people, the God's creation.
And you came down then onto the path, and there were people there.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
There was a path that I was moving on, and there's people to the left that were just congregating. They were just gathering. In fact, it looked like a few of them were just getting in place just as I arrived. And it made me think, rightfully so, I found out, that they were getting there to welcome me, to be there just when I needed them to be there. And I looked at these wonderful people that were brilliantly lit with their bright eyes and great smiles with genuine hearts. By the way, all of the light is still coming from God, through the wall, through the people, through me. And these people were, at this point, I saw family later, but at this point it was important, I think, that God had me welcomed by the most wonderful, loving, kindest people ever. And yet none were what we would call blood family. And when I discussed this quickly through my heart to my guides, the information came to me very quickly from heart to head that this was my real family. This was my spiritual family. These are my brothers. These are my sisters. And everybody was about the same age. Nobody was old or decrepit. There was nothing wrong with anybody. No scars. So hide mine here. And everybody looked about your age, if I may say.
No. 30.
I joked to them
We want
earlier,
30.
but yeah, they
29 is
looked
what
around
I'm
30.
going for.
Yeah, I'll go with that. But yeah, they looked around at 30-ish, in that era, and it was clear that the most important family is my spiritual brothers and sisters, and there's millions, hundreds of millions. If you don't have family, you will love heaven because you have millions waiting for you. And others have family in heaven already. And the great news about that is we'll be able to, connect again and have this wonderful fellowship with our family from the blood. But the blood family on earth is not like it is in heaven. We're all blood family. It's the blood of Jesus. We're all bonded together, and it's beyond words. It's wonderful beyond words.
Well, and we had a chance to sit down yesterday, and Dale has so much more to tell. And in the weeks to come, you're going to hear, because he went through that gate and met some blood relatives you had never met before, and then saw the one who clearly took your breath away. And so we're gonna hear more. So stick with us. Come back. But let's thank Captain Dale Black. Thank you so much.